Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest in the award-winning OnBase podcast series. I'm your host, Paul Gibson, and with everyone in B2B fighting for improved metrics in 2025, etc., I'm really excited that today I'm talking with Ingrid Archer, co-founder of B2B agency Spot On Vision and host of the recent excellent European ABM Forum event in the Netherlands. And today we're discussing cracking the ABM code, why success takes more than just strategy. Ingrid, we've been partnering with Spot On Vision for some time, so I know you well, and I'm really excited to get you on to this show. So thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Paul. Really excited to be here as well.
Excellent. And this is a really interesting topic, and I think lots of people listening will be really interested in what you have to say. But let's start with the simple question, Ingrid. Can you walk us through your journey, where you are today, and what led you to a career in B2B marketing, and how and why did your focus then turn to ABM?
Yes, good question. So I'm not the youngest anymore, but I started maybe 25 years ago. I was working in IT, and I was responsible for marketing and communications in the company. And they were used to work with an advertising agency, and I inherited the advertising agency back then. And the advertising agency wanted to do a big ad campaign, and they wanted to fly to Fiji for photography. And they tried to convince me that it was a great idea to shoot some photos for beautiful billboards, and it would cost quite some money. And I was quite young then, and I'm like, but that doesn't make sense. We are in B2B. Our target audience is really confined. We target 80 mortgage providers in the Benelux. So why would we do billboard advertising, and why would we fly to Fiji for a photo shoot? I think, so this was 25 years ago, and I was quite young and innocent maybe and naive, but I already thought this doesn't make sense. So I was working in B2B in IT, and after a bit, I realized that there were no agencies, at least not in continental Europe, for B2B marketing. And I was really inspired by what I found, what I needed as a B2B marketing director. So that's basically around that time, I met Simon Benayoun, my co-founder of Spot On Vision, and we started a B2B agency. And we wanted to really passionately help B2B marketers come out of their corners and build a community for them.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And we had Shimon as an earlier guest on this podcast, and he was great as well. So, I mean, I've been in the space for a while as well, the ABM space, 100 years it feels like. So I get where your story is coming from. Are there any particular moments you think that shaped your perspective, or indeed your strategy, and coming up with the ABM approach?
Well, I think we've always done it, but we never called it like that. So we were always very much on, initially we were talking about content marketing and then inbound marketing. And then we were very much into research and making sure that whenever we had a customer at Spot On Vision, we would say, make sure we understand the buyer well. So we used to do a lot of buyer journey and buyer persona research to understand how can you build a good go-to-market strategy. Some of our customers, take Schiphol Airport, they would have a buying, the length of their buying cycle could be like 8 years. For their customers, for example, a cargo company who would decide to fly in via Schiphol Airport. So we were always already doing what we're doing today in a way, focusing, doing the research, making sure you understand the buyer journey, and then translate it into a good strategy. So we've always been doing it, but we never called it ABM.
Yeah, I think that's and ABM is one of those terms that is as a curse as well as a positive thing, because if you speak to sales leaders, which we do all the time, and we start with the term ABM, they think, oh, that's some marketing thing, it's not relevant to us. So I think that's where ABX evolved from, and GTM and all these different terms. But I think that at the end of the day, the key is, if B2B companies are focusing on companies they can sell to and no one else, that makes perfect sense. And that's what that account-based approach is, right? So that sounds like it's something that first sparked your interest in the account-based strategies. How have you seen that approach evolve over the years?
But it keeps on popping up in different shapes and different formats, I think. So I remember I'm not sure if I remember the year, but maybe it was 2019 or something. 2009. I don't know. We were organizing a B2B marketing forum, right? A big event. So we have our agencies put on vision, and then on the side we are building this community. So we do masterclasses, events, B2B awards, all sorts of things. And we once had a guest speaker, Joseph Jaffa, and he wrote a book, Flip the Funnel.
Right. Yeah.
Which was a nice moment where we go like, okay, so he's actually saying focus on your customers first. So flip that funnel. I think he nicked that concept from Seth Godin, but Seth Godin meant something else with that. So flip the funnel and focus on your existing accounts, because that's where the money sits. So in that same time, we started already to do masterclasses on account-based marketing as well. So we've always been trying to educate people around us. So we do masterclass, we built an academy. And I think in those early years, maybe, I don't know, I guess it must have been 10 years ago, we started already educating our customers, our community on account-based marketing. But I remember that Joseph Jaffa guy talking about the book Flip the Funnel, and that for many people in the audience back then was also a really nice eye-opener.
Yeah, I think, and it's interesting. You brought up, flip the funnel and look at your customers first, almost. And I was saying this to Shimon actually when we spoke a while back, that I probably would say at least 50% of the effort that our customers take is with existing customers, upsells, renewals, etc. So I think ABM was always seen as a way to win new business, and it is. But also it's a really important way to protect your customer base and upsell them and get more value out of that. So I think that's a really important.
We get that question a lot, like when we talk about account-based marketing, and then somebody says, but would it also work on customers? Because we have, we only have 90% of our target audience is an existing customer. And we go like, of course it does. I mean, it's almost like that's where it started. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And we use the product ourselves, as part of the approach, is identifying if we see a customer exploring, something where we have a product that can solve that problem, or maybe even they're looking at a competitor and we can get insight of that early on so we can stop it becoming a risk of churn, etc. It's a really important part of it. So as you look back, was there a pivotal moment? And it sounds like that flip the funnel might be part of it, or was there a challenge in your career that shaped your own understanding of an account-based marketing approach?
Well, the more we were teaching others, the more you're also forced to learn yourself, right? So we would get most of our content, our educational stuff from people from Serious Decisions, for example, or later Forrester, because they were talking about it forever and they had specialized division on just ABM. So we would get our learnings mostly from stories from the US, to be honest, not so much from Europe. So that's interesting. So we looked a lot at their models and their frameworks and tried to make them more practical, if you like, or more pragmatic, like how it's easy to say it, like, oh yeah, you should look at the buying group, but what does it really mean? How do you do it? It's easy to say, oh, you shouldn't measure marketing qualified leads, but you should look at the account level. That's all great, but how do you do it? So for us, that was also interesting to figure that out with our customers, because many times it touches technology. You know about that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you made a really good point, US versus Europe. I think, hope my US colleagues don't mind me saying this, but I think the actual approach is more sophisticated in Europe, and we're a smaller market that we're going after. And probably you have to be better at an account-based approach to be successful, because there's so many companies in the US that you can probably do a bit of a scattergun approach and be successful. Whereas in Europe, an account-based approach is probably more required than ever. So it's really interesting to see. And I've been, as I say, similar to yourself, been in this space for a while now. And I think it's evolved. There definitely was a feeling in Europe that ABM was a one-to-one consulting, resource-heavy thing that's now evolved over time with technologies to becoming something that you can scale across all of your customers, all of your prospects, and personalize all the messaging. So it definitely has changed. So as I said, we both been doing this for a while. From your perspective, what's the most rewarding part of seeing your customers and companies succeeding with ABM strategies?
It's again, it's like an old topic, but when the sales and marketing teams are finally working together properly, I think that's rewarding, because many times, and it's been talked about a lot, like they operate on islands, or even when they say, "Oh yeah, we work together really well," they say that sometimes. To really work well in practice and to work on accounts, that is still a bit of a challenge, because of different goals they still have, or different ways of them being measured on quarterly basis, so it could be anything. Or on leads, marketing qualified leads. We had somebody the other day, he said, "I want 500 meetings. Can you help me with ABM?" And we're like, well, if you want 500 meetings, what do you mean actually, I gave him a hard time, I'm afraid. But so yeah, I'm most proud when I see finally sales and marketing teams working together properly, and being excited about the fact that they are helping each other. And we've had customers in the past who said, "Oh no, we will do ABM, but we don't want to bother our sales team. We'll do it by ourselves without them." And we're like, okay, but how does that even work? Or I've had programs where we started with sales, but then slowly the sales team changed, and then the whole program fell apart. So it's not easy to really do that, and to stay together, to stick together, and to figure out a way to really be one team. But I've seen that happen, and that's really nice.
Yeah, I think that alignment is underestimated, the importance of that. And we speak to, as I said, we don't just sell into marketing. We speak to salespeople all the time, and the sales leaders that come to us and say, "ABM's not something I need. I've got a pipeline full of rubbish and my salespeople can't sell anything. I just need more leads." Well, that's looking at it the wrong way, right? An account-based approach means that your marketing team will only focus on companies that your sales team can sell to. Therefore, your pipeline may not have as many leads, but they'll be better quality. And guess what? You're going to close more. So it's and that alignment is really important.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I've seen, I'm not sure if that's an answer to your question, but it's nice to mention, is in Europe, things work differently from the US. So we have done programs where we had to focus on selling also in Spain, Italy, France. And then the markets are so different from what we in I don't know, in the UK or in the Netherlands or in the Nordics are used to, because there we heavily rely still on traditional PR as a layer on top of your ABM program to build awareness and to be seen and to work on our reputation. I always say to people, like, look, ABM, yes, it's very targeted approach, but you have to have a layer of awareness building on top, or reputation building, whatever you call it. In Southern European countries, that is even more important, because there many things still happen only face to face, or people still read magazines, and I mean it's a different ball game. So when you roll out ABM programs across Europe, then you have to take that into account, that not all the countries are the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. And I had a long conversation with a brand marketer who was saying brand is everything. I said, brand is really important. And to your point, awareness is so important. But if I only sell to banks and financial institutions, there's actually no benefit for me as a business getting awareness in the retail sector, because it may actually lead to opportunities coming into our pipeline, lots of increased traffic on our website, more clicks on our ads, but it's from companies you can't sell to. So brand awareness is everything, but make sure it's focused on those companies that you as a business can and want to sell to, I think is really important. But You're right. There's so many differences, and we have conversations every day with different parts of Europe and Middle East. It's always a different cultural approach as well as a different marketing approach. It makes it interesting though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think often ABM is perceived as straightforward, but it ends up being more complex when you actually start to execute it. Why do you think that is?
Sometimes because teams don't really know all the things before they start. They don't know what it really entails, and they also want to keep on doing all the other stuff. So it comes on top of their normal workload, and they can't see it through. So that's why it sometimes fails. Sometimes it fails because they don't have the patience. They want results in the first quarter of the program, and you'd be happy if you have a proper plan in the first quarter, to be honest. And I never like to say that because it's not nice to say to people, okay, the first couple of months we'll be busy doing the research, busy building the plan, busy busy preparing. They don't want to hear that. Salespeople don't like that at all. So what we tend to say is also, well, in the first month or pretty soon, we'll actually start with some quick wins as well, while we're building that proper plan. And they like that bit. But many times it fails because they don't have the patience. They don't want to wait. They still want the quick wins, and they want to rush it. They want to skip the research. They don't, or they say, look, this is my target account list. I want to focus on those names, and they have no idea why. So there are a lot of beginner mistakes, and that's why it doesn't always work out.
Yeah. And impatience is definitely one of the biggies in the ABM world. So what you've done a number of these projects at Spot On Vision over the years. What are some of the biggest misconceptions you see when companies start implementing the ABM approach?
Well, the misconception is still that they think it's easy, and it's not. It's not easier to do. Actually, it's easier to do batch and blast marketing, right? To just roll out a LinkedIn campaign to everyone. A misconception is that they think it's the same as social selling. So we were told to a big company once, and we said, okay, let's start ABM. Yeah, we want to do ABM. We want to do it. Okay. We explain what it is, and they go, yeah. And then in the end, they say, we decided to go the other approach. We're going to do ABM, but we just let the sales team, they're going to do a 2-hour social selling course. And that's what they called ABM. Wow. So the misconception many times is also that they have no idea what it is. That's why I said earlier, like, education is important. So what we tend to do now is we offer clients, we offer them like, hey, if you don't even know, do an inspiration session first with the team. If you know a little bit more, but you don't know where to start, do a readiness and scoping session first. And then when you think you want to start it, do a pilot first. So there's all these grades of how you could start to protect yourself from failing. But it's the unknown many times. Or it's the C-level that is pushing the team to be quicker with their results, and it doesn't always work like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always say that be careful of the big bang approach. If you're bringing this new concept in and you're trying to bring the sales team with you, don't roll it out to them all on day one. Get some champions who believe in the process and believe it's the right thing to do. Yep. Get a handful of those, get them seeing the benefits. And then when they go into a sales meeting and they say, right, next Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm meeting these companies. They've been looking at this. They're interested in this. They came to a website and saw this, and et cetera, et cetera. Everyone else in the sales team suddenly says, I want that insight. And then they all want to adopt these approaches rather than saying to everyone, you've got it. And then it often falls flat. So that's obviously something that we see that can cause issues sometimes. And from your experience in projects, what are the other most common reasons you've seen for an ABM project failing?
Budget. It could be that they want to do a lot of things, and then they end up saying, and then the plans are in place, the team is in place, and then they say, oh, actually, we have no more budget for execution. So we want to use our existing, I don't know, events or white papers or whatever, and we don't have money to tailor it. We don't have money to personalize anything. We actually don't have money. And then it's quite hard to run to follow up on all the nice things that you thought of. So it's important to understand that before you even start, you have the budget. And I remember, I think it was John Miller back then, who was saying, like, when you think of starting, sort of think already how much money you want to spend on the program. What is a potential customer worth? How much do you want to invest? Because if there's no budget, yeah, you can have a great plan, but then you can't execute. It goes for all marketing, I guess. So that's one of the things that I see going wrong. Expertise in the companies. Sometimes people tell their manager, I really want to be the ABM lead in this team. And the manager says, okay, you go do it. And then they actually have no idea. So they then do it. And even sometimes with coaches on the side or with some advice on the side, they still actually roll out normal, demand gen programs or whatever you call it. But they forget about the research and they don't do the focused approach and they call it ABM. So that's also interesting. And if they're successful, then, that's also fine. I don't mind how you call it, but don't say you want to do account focus if you want to skip anything like clever segmenting or anything like research, because those are important, or anything like personalization.
Yeah, makes sense. And I suppose you're opening up a whole other subject there for the listeners who may just be starting their ABM journeys. What would you recommend as the most critical first step?
Make sure that you know what it entails, what it is, and how it can work for you. So talk about that. And not only the marketing team, or sometimes what people do is first the marketing team gets some education around it, and then they include the sales team. Is also fine, but marketing and sales need to be both educated on what it really is. I've seen programs starting, and then when we come along, we found out actually they have no idea what it is they're doing and why they're doing it. So education is, I think, important. Understanding if they can measure, because if you have no tools, and I'm not a big technology person, that's you more, or my colleague Shimon. But if you don't have any tools, then you can run an account-based marketing program, but you have to do lots of things manually then, which is not the easiest, depending on obviously what you do. So think a little bit about it. Then it goes back to budget again, or about resources. What do you need before you start? But you can also start a small pilot. But then again, even with a small pilot, I mean, not a 4-week pilot. That doesn't work. So think more long-term. Think 6 months to start with, or 3 months if you like. But then, you can't really see the results probably.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with a very large organization that I won't name, who said that their average contract value is about 2.5 million. It takes them 9 to 12 months to get from finding a company to closing them, and they wanted to do a 1-month pilot for $10,000. And we were like, well, that doesn't make sense, right? You've got to think about what you're trying to do here. But so there's lots of challenges, and people talk around data quality and things like that. How will companies, do you think, be able to resolve those things around the quality of data, accessibility, to make sure that their ABM campaigns are effective?
Well, I hope they have someone in-house who can focus on the data, the technology. It could be a marketing operations person or a data steward or whatever you call that. So somebody needs to be responsible for the data and be able to look at the dashboard that you're building, because if you don't know how to measure your progress, then it's quite hard to prove the whole thing in general, right? In marketing. And many people do that. Many B2B marketers still do lots of things, spend lots of money without measuring the return. So, but you need people in the team responsible for the data quality and for the technology.
Yeah, and we always say that if you try and do anything like in the B2B world without knowing who's in market, why they're in market, where they are on your buyer journey, you're really crossing your fingers and hoping that your strategy works. And we spend a lot of time when we do pilots and trials of, okay, well, let's identify who your target market is. Let's understand if they're in market now, and if so, why are they in market? Understand if they're coming to your website or if they're talking to your salespeople. Without that, good luck having a strategy. But once you've got that, you can identify this is an awareness campaign. This is someone who knows us, but they're not engaging, or they're getting so far, but not raising their hand. And then it helps you build out relevant strategies. So yeah, I think it's really important to have that insight.
Yeah.
Thinking about the projects you've done over the year, can you share a success story maybe where overcoming alignment or operational hurdles transformed an ABM initiative from potential failure to success?
I have an example on how to do it, how to do a project in a way to build the trust of the sales team. So an example, I remember how we did that. So we didn't start with like, hey, we're going to do ABM. We said, okay, we're going to help you with your marketing and sales, right? I tend to say marketing and sales always in a one breath because they're together. So we're going to help you marketing and sales. And what we did is we did some buyer research. We looked at the markets. This is for a pan-European across Europe program. We did some interviews with people in the countries. It was a very targeted market. So this is like cities across Europe. So the city council, if you like, of bigger cities. And we wanted to buy a data to use in improving the quality of the city, if you like. So think of cities of Madrid or Paris or Rome and so on. So we want to focus on the largest cities. But we didn't start saying, oh, let's do ABM. We just said, okay, let's build a marketing program. How are we going to approach this, marketing and sales? And we did the research and we created quite a sort of a generic content marketing approach because they were very unknown in those countries. And then we had to obviously go to the next step. Okay, but how do we roll this out? And the sales team was involved all the way. They were quite intrigued, but they didn't feel yet what it would mean for them. And then when we talked about, but how are we going to roll this out? They realized even more that it's so important to tailor it to the countries and to the cities that we wanted to target. And then we said to them, this was way in the project, we said, okay, so we actually should make this an account focus, right? We should look at the accounts that you really, really want. And they said, yeah. So what we did then we had the sales team on our side even more. And we tweaked the basic program that we had in mind. We then tailored it and we made it into an account-based marketing program. So we didn't start like, oh, let's do account-based marketing. We said, okay, let's see how are we going to do our marketing and sales? And then only 2 months in, we turned it into an account approach. And then we rolled it out in the different countries. And the sales team was really involved. Because it was not like a trick that we came on. We didn't start straight away like, oh, let's do ABM. I'd rather not use that word, but it was more, helping them and bringing them on the journey and also make them understand how important it is to focus on your ideal customer or on the accounts that you really, really want. And there's only like 10 cities in a country. So come on, that is account based.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you say, don't use the term ABM. We probably in 70% of the sales cycles we go through, ABM is never a term that's used. It's identifying and solving problems like you've got the wrong mix in your pipeline or you're missing out on opportunities because you didn't know they were there or we didn't know all those people had come to your website and not filled out a form sort of thing. So yeah, ABM is the term that is still around and it's still what we do, right? It's all account based, but sometimes using that makes it harder to get into the door. So AI is something that is obviously really topical right now. Do you talk about it day to day and how, I suppose, are you using it yourself in AI within your own marketing? And if so, have you got an example you could share with us?
Yeah, we talk about it every day. Our customers are asking for it as well. They say, help us, because we want to sort of use it better and we don't know where to start or what skills do I need in my team to get started. So we talk about it a lot. At Spot on Vision, within our own agency, we have a very focused team, but we actually put it on everybody's personal development plan. We said, whatever you do this year, it has to involve AI and improvements and ways of better working. So we're looking at automating process. We're looking at how to improve research, how to use intent, how to automate process. So we do it all the time. We're testing, experimenting, and so on. It's everywhere. People can't, they can't go around it. So what we're trying to do now, especially because we're looking mostly at account-based programs for our Spot on Vision customers, is that we look at all the building blocks of account-based marketing and go-to-market approaches, we're looking at every building block, and we look at, okay, how can we make this more automated or more clever or more easy or more efficient to execute? And that could be then in account segmentation. It can be in research, account research, if you like. It can be in creating content and personalizing content. So every building block has a way to do it better or easier or more efficient. So we're looking at all the different building blocks and implementing AI in it, testing things, because it's so much is possible. Yeah, but also in the team, things are changing. We used to have a full-time designer in-house. We no longer have him. And initially he was saying to us like, oh, am I going to lose my job now? We said, no, of course not. But to be honest, we don't miss him much. It's not nice to say, but it's, yeah, I mean, we can now, do things ourselves. Our team can do far more. And I think that's for B2B companies in general. You can do far more in the time that you have with your team.
Yeah, and as you're probably aware, the Demandbase recently bought out our AI agents, Agent-Base, I think we call it, and it's all around taking all the manual effort out so that people can concentrate on marketing and selling and doing what they really want to do. And I was asked, do I think AI is going to replace people? And I said, I think people using AI will replace people not using AI. I think that's going to be the secret thing. So, we've only just really scratched the surface, Ingrid, and I know there's so much more we can do. So maybe we can set ourselves up for another session to dig deeper into ABM. But if you don't mind, a couple of more generic questions. Mm-hmm. Are there any tools, technology, maybe it's AI, maybe it's other stuff that you'd recommend to our listeners?
You want me to say Demandbase now, no?
You can say anything you want.
Well, like I said before, I'm not the technology wizard in our company. So I know tools. I know what we use at Spot & Vision. I know what our customers use. I would definitely always recommend to have a proper CRM system in place, that you know who your customers are, that you know what products they bought and so on. And there are many, many companies, and I don't know if you come across that, who don't even have that in place. I mean, I'm amazed. So that is one, make sure you have your basics right. And it starts with CRM, I would say. And then automate some of your process. So your marketing automation, your sales automation, look at those things. And then all the things around personalization. But there are many tools. At Spot & Vision, we are a partner of Demandbase, of course, but also we partner with Trendemmen on website personalization experience. There's so many tools. I mean, we use Apollo with some of our customers. Obviously LinkedIn and some social tools. So I don't know if you want me to name names, but I think in all the boxes of marketing, there are some tools available, and they all have their perks. So they all have their good and bad things, pros and cons. And I can't keep up. I can't.
No, it's constantly changing, and some clients we talk to have too many technologies, some don't have enough, and I think it's that perfect mix is something we're all looking for, I think.
Yeah.
So it would appear that you're someone who consumes a lot of content. We were talking about the Flip the Funnel book and things like that. Are there any other books, blogs, newsletters, or maybe other podcasts you'd recommend to our listeners?
Well, I'm a founder of an agency, so I really like listening to agency life, but that is, not necessarily for B2B marketeers. It's not that's different. I never forget when we started Spot & Vision, and in 2006 we started. In 2010 we started our first B2B marketing forum, so that was the need for community building, and we invited back then the author Seth Godin from the US. He wrote books like Lynchpin and Purple Cow, books like that. And he came to the Netherlands and he talked about the Purple Cow. What do you need to do to stand out? It's really important to stand out, to be unique. Now, those principles that he was talking about, but also Permission Marketing is another book he wrote at the time in those years. Permission marketing, don't shout at people that you can help them. Make sure they want to listen to you first. All those principles still are so valid. So I'll never forget reading those books, and I would recommend any marketeer. So when we have a new young colleague coming on board at Spot on Vision, we always say, we many times give the book The Purple Cow. Like, read this. It's a very easy to read book, and it's about, make sure you stand out. So that's actually something I would recommend. If you want to follow more things around ABM, I like what Thomas Algeier is doing in Germany. He collects, he's fanatic. He collects all these ABM stories from the internet, and he puts them in a LinkedIn newsletter. So if you want to learn more about account-based marketing, you could follow that newsletter or subscribe to that newsletter, and you get it through LinkedIn. You get all the latest events, the latest blogs, articles, podcasts, and so on. So that's a great way to stay up to date, I would say.
Yeah.
And Spot on Vision, we organize some events as well. So we do master classes. I think in autumn we are doing one with you in the Netherlands as well. Yeah. So we do lots of master classes and workshops where any B2B marketer or a salesperson can also learn more about ABM.
Awesome, thank you. And you've been a great guest, Ingrid. So cheeky asked this one. Could you share the names of maybe 2 or 3 inspirational people that in the space that you recommend we bring onto the show? And we've already had Shimon before you share him.
No worries. So I don't know if you've asked him already, but I would recommend Thomas Algeier from Vrenes, the research company from Germany. He's a keen ABMer. He also is in that little group that we are talking about together with some others around, get rid of the MQL, but what is it? The MQL revolution or whatever it's called. Talk about accounts and not leads. So Thomas, I could recommend. He's based in Stuttgart, I think. I would also recommend, but he's retired, and I don't know if he's willing to talk, but he knows a lot about account-based marketing. It's Bob Peterson. He is from Serious Decisions or Forrester, ex-Forrester. He stopped work. He's a personal friend of mine, and he still helps some companies on the side. So I know he has 20 years of ABM experience. So if you could get him on, he has a lot of experience. That might be nice. He's based in the US.
They're all great recommendations, and I'm pretty sure we haven't had any of those 3 on. So I'll be reaching out after this, and I'll be blaming you for me doing so. But no, I appreciate that. That's very good, and it would be great to get them on. I think this has been a really good session for our listeners. If anyone wanted to get in touch with you to pick your brain further, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you, Ingrid?
Well, it's Ingrid Archer. So either connect on LinkedIn, or send me a mail, ingrid@spotonvision.com. Based in the Netherlands, but we work internationally. So open to anyone.
Fantastic, thank you. And shameless plug here. I mean, we've been working with Spot on Vision for a while now. They're an excellent organization. If you want to try this account-based approach and you haven't yet, they're a really good company to work with. So thank you. That was a really good session, Ingrid. As I say, I'm sure there's room for many more, but thank you very much for your time today. I hope everyone listening has enjoyed the episode. Don't forget, there's over 500 others out there. There's a big series, so make sure you check them out. And in the meantime, thanks very much for listening. And until the next time, cheerio.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks.